they related? Well, they're both an emotional thing. You know, we can be taught as believers that faith is good, emotions are bad. Well, that's not true at all. There's nothing wrong with emotions. You know that you are made in the image of your Creator. You know that God has emotions. You know that God has joy. There's more joy in heaven over one sinner that repents. Right? God grieves. The children of Israel grieved God. You know, and God can be angry. God can show His wrath. I mean, God is emotional. Jesus wept. Right? That's emotion. Jesus wept more than once. One time He was on Mount Olivet, I believe, and He was looking out over the city. Is it mountain? Is that right? And He was looking out over the city, over Jerusalem, and he wept, and He said, "How often have I wanted to gather my children together, like a hen does with their babies, you know, like a brood taken together. How often did I want to do that?" You know, the pain in Jesus' heart, because He came to His own, and His own received Him not. And boy, He wept at it. He says, "You've missed your day of visitation." Here's the Son of God. The Jewish people were waiting and waiting and waiting for the Messiah. They were just waiting through the years and through the centuries. And then here's the Messiah, and what do? They rejected Him. And so the pain, you know, and then John chapter 12, I believe it is, with Lazarus. You remember, he went to the grave, and he told Mary that if you believe, you'll see your brother rise. Right? And then He came to the grave, and Martha was sad. You know, faithful Martha, who heard His word. She said the same thing, "Lord, if you'd have been here, my brother wouldn't have died." And so they go to the grave together. And on the way there, it says, Jesus wept, and He groaned in His spirit. You know, there's emotion there, isn't there? You know, in our English language, we use the word passion to kind of show that. Passion for your country. Somebody goes out and fights. You see these documentaries about World War I and World War II, and you see all these people that lay down their life. They gave up their tomorrows that we might have our today. The passion that was in them. Right? And you see passion for the love for your family. And passion for the love between spouses. You know, God desires us to have passion in all these areas of our life. Maybe you have relationships that are void of passion. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And so here in John chapter 2, I want to read you something. There's a Bible word that we could say that kind of describes this. You might want to take a guess what it might be for somebody who's very passionate about their cause.
Zealous?
Yeah. Barbara? Everybody else is just really shy, huh? But the thing is, she's always right. I love Barbara. John chapter 2, he says, we'll start in verse 13. "And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, and He found in the temple those that sold oxen, sheep, and doves, and the changers of money sitting." Now, think of this scene. Jesus comes into the temple, the place of worship, right? And here are people, they're selling. They're making, well, what's happening, and just to give you an idea, you know, 3 times a year, all Jews were required to come to Jerusalem. And many times when you came, you had to bring a sacrifice. And so, let's say you had a long trip and your sacrifice died, or you couldn't get one. Well, when you go into the temple, they were selling them. You know, we're selling sacrifices over here, 2 for 1 special today. And, boy, they were just turning God's house into something it wasn't meant to be. You know, God's house is a place where there's honor, right? It's a place where we show honor. I don't mean there's not joy there. I don't mean there's not to be happy in the house of God. I was glad, David said, I was glad when they said to me, let us go into the house of the Lord. I mean, coming to church should be something that, boy, when you come in, there's rejoicing. You see people and there's fellowship. You know, when I look out and I see y'all rejoicing and happy and speaking to one another and praying for one another, my joy is fulfilled. You know, to see you walking in truth of the Word, and my joy is fulfilled when I see that. But here, they were making it into business, right? You know, I get uncomfortable with some of the things that happens in Christianity. The way they sell things. You know, the way that everything has a price tag. Now, you may or may not agree with me on this one, but you know, when I see a conference come and it's just super duper speaker, right? Man, they just have a healing, maybe it's a healing conference or whatever. Admission, $150. I have a problem with that. Got a problem with that. Now, they need money to run that show? Yeah, they do. It's called taking up an offering. It's called believing God. So I remember hearing on the radio, yeah, this ministry is 100% by faith, but if you don't give, we're going down. What? God's people should give. If somebody blesses you, give to them. It's just money. Right? Give to them. Support them. You know, I mean, you should. There's nothing wrong with that. Paul says if I give you the spiritual things, is it such a big thing that I take your natural things? Paul said, I've robbed other churches to minister to you. That doesn't mean Paul went in with a spear and said, put it in the plate. It means he took from other churches to give to others. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we take the things of God and make merchandise of them, that's what I'm talking about. And so, now this has a point. There's a point to this. Verse 15. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, a scourge is a whip. Here's the meek, lowly lamb making a whip. And he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and he poured out the changers' money, and he overthrew the tables. He ruined their day. He ruined it. And then he said to them that sold doves, take these things from here. Make not my Father's house a house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal of your house has eaten me up. Jesus was passionate. Right?